So, what we're here to talk about today is an application called MyForms. I came across this on LinkedIn. I think someone shared it, and it looked pretty interesting to me. There are definitely some cases where I think this could be like a useful tool to have in your tool belt. This actually comes out of the innovation lab from ServiceNow, so it's on the store, but it's like not officially supported by them. But definitely in my time on ServiceNow, I've seen some cases where this would have been really useful to have. There's a little bit of risk just because it's from the innovation lab and it's not officially ServiceNow supported. So here we'll just a kind of high level agenda, what is MyForms and why might I use it? So I think there's definitely some interesting use cases here from a high level, what the components are, and then a demo and discussion. The slides are not super heavy on like how to use it because there's actually a really good document, which I'll show you on the store that goes through like all the functionality. So it didn't really seem to make sense to recreate all that. When might I use MyForms, right? So to collect information without the need for a workflow, right? So in the cases where you don't really need like an entire you don't need a catalog item, you don't need like a record producer, like you're not going to necessarily have some kind of workflow kickoff in the background. If you're collecting some information, like doing a survey, or you're if you think about what Survey Monkey, all those kind of products do, this is like very similar to that. But the benefit of using this would be that you have it in the platform and you could potentially hook it into some other process, right? And having everything on one platform is also a benefit, and not having to use another tool. So the second point here is you can collect information anonymously. So you can collect it anonymously, but it still requires a login. You can't, like a Survey Monkey, go out and create a survey that you don't need a login for. Like at this point, you have to have a ServiceNow login, which may be a good thing, but you don't right now have the option to have it where there's no login required. Using it for a survey, right? So obviously ServiceNow has survey functionality, but it's usually kicked off by like an incident is resolved, and then, okay, I'm going to send the survey out and it's related to this task. And this is a little bit easier. And there's some really nice features that let you export it out. And there's some dashboards that have the survey results built in. It really, really kind of nice and easy to use. All right, so how do I get it? If you're on like an actual, instance, you go to the store and there's a MyForms application. If you notice here, it's only marked as available right now in Utah and Tokyo. I'm not sure what the plans are to have it for like Vancouver and beyond, but it's free, it's automatically entitled, and then you can get it on a PBI. So if you go to your PBI and your plugin lists, you can look up MyForms and install it. So that's nice that they made it available for PBIs. So how do I get to it, right? So depending on your roles, and this is one thing that I imagine if you would implement it somewhere, you might do it a little differently. Like, so if you're a MyForms admin, see MyForms and then the dashboard and forms created by me, and then you get this administration section, which we won't go too deep into, but it has a bunch of different like configurations you can make. If you're just a regular user, you actually see the dashboard and forms created by me, and you may or may not want to use that, and we'll kind of look at why, because there are a number of different options for how you can look at the forms that have been shared with them. This is one option which may be a little confusing, at least how it comes out of the box. All right, so general flow is this shouldn't really be that surprising, but you create the form with an editor. It's all no code. You publish the form, you share the form out, and you have a number of options for how you can do that. The users are going to go through and submit it, and then you can monitor and review the results of that form. And so again, these are going to be kind of light because we're going to go and actually see how it looks. I think that's much more valuable. But from a high level, when you go and create and publish the form, you're going to do this again with no code. When you get into actually seeing how the form is designed, it's very similar to like if you've ever used a survey designer in ServiceNow, it's very similar to that. 4 main like steps here that are outlined here. You have your general, where you're giving it a title and a description, and you can actually have other people that can collaborate on building that form. this is where you get into the actual questions. You can have different sections of the form, which is nice. There's like a number of like data types you can use that we'll look at. And then you add like the recipients. So this you can do a couple of different ways. You can just like create a URL that you share it with people. You can actually assign people to that, to that form, and it'll show up in their dashboard or get emailed out to them. You can kind of combine those two things too. It has a feature for sending out emails to that you can customize, send out to your users, and then it has a reminder functionality too. So if you see that you're not getting responses from everyone, you can send out a reminder email that says, "Hey, please go out and fill out the form that has been assigned to you." So nothing crazy, but it does a really nice job of packaging all these things together and making it really nice and easy. So like I was mentioning, there's essentially three ways you can select recipients and email them using from the ServiceNow instance. Like you invite them, you can add them by group or individually, which we'll look at. You can generate a URL. So there's this option here that it'll generate a URL that you can email out or put in Teams, or maybe it does get put at the bottom of a notification. The URL is very flexible. And then the recipients can also view forms they were invited to on their dashboard. So you'll see if you go to the MyForms dashboard page, you can see like what things are pending for you that you can take. In terms of user submission, they can submit either by clicking a link in the email that's going to be sent out from the MyForms dashboard, or the link that's been sent out. One thing that's really neat about this is that if you have I know I've definitely done this, like if you get like a long survey, you're like, okay, like I got halfway through, I'm gonna finish it later. This actually supports you saving the form and then coming back to it and doing the submission at a later time. So if you get interrupted or if it's long, this functionality is built in to where it can be done at a later time. So I thought that was kind of neat. So responses can be viewed on the MyForms dashboard. If you're like a collaborator or the creator of that form, we'll look at what that looks like. At a certain point, it would be, if you had a lot of responses, it would get hard to digest that way. But there's also export to CSV that you can do with just a single button click, which dumps all the data out to a CSV for you. And then this isn't necessarily like advertised in like the documentation about this, but of course it's stored in a table. So you can go to the table and look at all the responses for that survey, and like, you can use all the standard, platform features to report off of it. Or, it wouldn't be something you use for a catalog. If you're going to have a bigger workflow, it should really be a catalog item, right? But like the kind of scenario I'm thinking of is like, I'd like to be contacted in the future, right? Or reach out to me about this thing. You could potentially hook up like a flow to it, right? So, oh, this person said yes, let's create a task to follow up with them. So I think that's another big selling point about this, like as opposed to using another survey tool, is like you can just hook that up to the rest of the platform, take advantage of the additional workflow and automation. Probably don't have to sell everyone here. So we kind of talked about this. You can't publicly share in this particular release. It requires a login, but the responses can be anonymous. And of course, people will say it's anonymous, but probably if someone really, really wanted to figure out, they could, right? So we don't want any sort of like PII or that kind of information here. As of this point, you can't make questions or options dependent on other answers, right? So like there's no UI policies or client scripts or anything like that. So you can mark fields mandatory, but you can't say, oh, only show this question if they answered this particular question that way. So that's a limitation right now. I did mention that this comes from the innovation lab, and it's not fully supported by ServiceNow. So you're kind of on your own with this if something goes wrong. It's not super complicated under the hood as far as I can tell. So the first thing I wanted to share is from the store, there's this MyForms product overview PDF. They did a really nice job documenting this. So it actually goes through all the functionality, kind of like the what we talked about, why you would use this, like some of the use cases, right? So feedback, sign up, registration, surveys, pretty good use cases. I'm sure there's others out there. Talks about how to create them and like what some FAQs. So this is like a really good document that they've created to go through this functionality, and that's linked right on the when you go to the store, it's linked right on the app. So really easy to find. I'm the admin person here. I have the MyForms admin role as well. That was one thing I noticed, is that you actually, even if you're an admin, it seems to explicitly check for you to have the MyForms admin role. So you'll want to make sure that you add that, because if you go to create a form and you don't have that, then it won't let you do it until you add that role. This is like the main landing page. It's built in the service portal. This is where you can create for a form from either scratch, or you can create from a template. And there are kind of like the templates and the platform. You can have like global templates, and only the admin can take a template and mark it as global, or you have like templates that are just yours, which I don't have any right now, that are just mine, and then you can share them with individuals. So really kind of similar to how templating works in general. And then you can create a brand new form here. I'm going to show you what it looks like after it's published, and then we'll kind of walk through what building a brand new one would look like. So this is one that I created a little while ago. I got a couple of responses. I didn't set a due date on this. So you can actually set like a start and end. Like you can see it here, start and end date. And you can say, okay, this survey is only going to be, or this form rather, is only available for a certain period of time. Once you publish it, you can't modify it, right? It's already out in the world. You can delete it, but that's going to delete your responses too. It's read only once it's published, which makes sense, right? You're not going to want to change the survey in the middle of it if people have taken it. And then we'll look at the responses, and then I'll go through and actually create one from scratch. So this is what the responses look like if you're looking in the dashboard here. So you can see, what would you like to talk about? I just created a idea form for share the wealth session. So it's got a few sections here. We have what would you like to share? So what would you like to talk about? When would you like to share? So you can see like these are required. So you have these fields that are required, and then you have another tab here that just kind of demonstrating the different controls you have. You have a text, you have a checkbox, you have a date and time. There's a reference too, which didn't seem to be working for me. I don't know if there was some other configuration needed, but that is an option as well, which is kind of nice. You can use reference fields and look at other data in the platform. You have radio buttons, and then there's a lot of different options for like these kind of image things. So you can have these like sliders with different images, and you can customize these as well. I know like a common one with like surveys is like the smiley faces, the sad to the happy, right? And then this last one has a open-ended comment field. So that's what it looks like. And then our responses look like this. What I was saying before, right, is if you're getting like hundreds of responses, this is going to not be probably a great way to look at it. If you have these are for like the string fields are obviously going to look like that, and then the date fields, you have one or the other. If you end up with a choice or a checkbox, right, it's gonna create a chart for you, so you can choose different chart types to display that data. So it's kind of nice. And then it keeps it broken up by section here. So yeah, so we have the yes and no's here again, and then this was a scale. That was the smiley face thing we saw there. And we have our 1 to 5. That's the range we define for this question. And then it makes it a chart. And then again, the comments are going to kind of be out like this. If you click this export to CSV, in this particular case, I had sent out invites to these people, so you can see like we didn't get responses for these yet. Otherwise, you see like when it was completed, and then like the data dumped out nicely in a column. So if you've dealt with survey reporting before, this seems way easier. That's what the reporting looks like. So we can jump back to how you create one and what that looks like, the steps there. So in general, we're going to have a form title to live. All right, and then I can set a start date here. So I'll set it from now. The note is on the owner. I'll set an end date to like end of September. So here's where you have a couple of options around whether or not they're anonymous. So you can just slide this on and off. I'm going to leave this off in this case. Multiple submissions, is an option here. I think this is one of the cases here would be like if you're doing a share the wealth idea form, right? You're going to want to let more people submit more than one, right? But if you're doing a survey about like how satisfied they are at working at GlideFast, you're only going to want to allow one. In this case, we only want to allow one submission because we're going to do like a quick satisfaction survey. You have the option here to kind of change your banner. You can define themes in that configuration section that give you different colors to use. If you have a particular brand colors, and then once you save this as draft, you can actually add an image here. So I'll just choose my same, and this has a little editor where you can crop it, which seems a little unnecessary, but you can crop your image in here and save it. So now that's part of those are all the options in general. Also collaborators, so I can say, Abraham Lincoln is a collaborator with me on this. This is where you come and add the different questions. So you start with your default first section here, and then you can click this and add more sections. So, you say the section title is, and then here's the different question types you have. So date or time, a number, a choice, rating, reference, text, and URL. The rating one, right, would be kind of like, satisfaction scale. So we'll do it like a, so I chose a scale with a type of custom, and I got a happy face, and I don't know, I'll say, yeah, well, 5 is a good one, right? You got them, it's typically how it is. Here you have the option to say required, and then when you have more than one question, you can move it around. You can also add like images here too. You can add it as part of your question. I can preview this as I go along and see how it looks, right? All right, so I'm gonna leave this to one question on this and just add another section. So, and then we'll just make this a big text field, right? All right, and then you can duplicate, like add an image, you could delete it here. This is a duplicate, and then this is like another kind of move. I guess you can add help text here too, which is kind of nice. So really pretty similar to the standard ServiceNow survey designer, although this is not just limited to surveys. So that's where you add the questions. Adding recipients here is, like we said, you don't necessarily have to add recipients. You can just like copy this link and send it out to people. It actually has the ability to import them too from a CSV, although they have to be users inside ServiceNow where it matches the email ID, but you can create a list of all those emails and import it from here. You can just say, everyone with that form, or you can pick specific users, right? So I don't know, I'll pick a group, admins. Yeah, you can just go through and pick a bunch of groups. Right. And so now you see they're added as recipients. So they'll show, specific people will show as like, oh, I really want to hear from them. I should either have or I haven't. And then from here, your last thing is you have the ability to send out emails. So I can say, I want a form invitation, and I want actually you use the reminder kind of like ad hoc, but the form invitation, templates is kind of nice for you actually out of the box. So the survey has been shared with you. Please submit your response, and then it has a link to it, and then salutation. So you can put whatever content you want in here. So I'm going to say that we're going to allow that to happen, and then for the reminder, once it's published, you can go and send that reminder out. Yeah, and you're between those dates there. So it's just another way to like kind of put it all in one place. So you can say, hey, I wanted to hear from you on the survey. Please get back to me. So I'm going to say this all looks good right now. I'm gonna publish this. I'll keep the start and end dates. So now it's published, and now I have my 2 published forms. I haven't heard back from anyone yet. It's going to expire on this particular date. If I go to Beth over here, so she's now got the satisfaction survey, I can fill in my comments, but you can see here that you can save it and then come back to it later, right? And then fill it out. So then you submit it, and you can actually it'll show that you submit it, and then the users can actually go back and see all the forms that they submitted. In this one, we marked that there's only one instance you can take, so it's not gonna it actually won't let you update the submitted one regardless, but they can't submit any additional ones. So we can see that they answered this. They can see their answers, and if they need to go back and see what they submitted. And then if we go back, here we'll see that it did updated, the responses, and just kind of like we looked at the responses for the one that came out before. And then, yeah, creating from a template is pretty similar. You just select a template, and then that's your starting point, and you can change it up. You're kind of using this at your own risk, just because it's a innovation lab product, but it's kind of like it gets you most of the way there. If you look at this, is like what the questions would look like. This is the question answers, right? So I can see, like, depending on the type of data, you're going to get a different format of the answer. If this is a choice, it gives you like the actual idea of the choice and then the label of it. Yeah, so here's the answer, right? So this is a string field. You can see the answer. And actually, you would, to report on this from like a particular form, you would walk from the form question, which relates back to like a form instance, essentially. This is one I created before, but on the form instance, you can see kind of like all the configuration here. If a template was used, the start and end, right? So this is just the backend view of all that data. What the notifications are, the related form question answers, right? So you can see all that. And then, like I mentioned kind of at the beginning, if you wanted to do something, with a flow or some other kind of trigger, you could potentially look at these answers and perform some additional automation against it. So MyForms in a nutshell. Right. Yeah. So here, yeah, you see it's innovation lab, and this is where the documentation was, and the installation guide is mentioned, and hopefully they make it available for Vancouver and keep improving on it, and maybe make it like an actual app in ServiceNow, because I think it has a lot of good flexibility in there.